Hello everyone. Welcome to lecture 3.1, Music and Evolution. In this lecture, we will talk about the role music plays in an evolutionary context. So, in our last lecture, we talked about musicality. We see that the musical ability is innate in our human nature. But how does that happen? What is music good for human evolutions? There are a few candidate arguments. For example, mate selection, coordinating group effort. And music might be good for social cohesion and solidarity in terms of conflict resolution and transgenerational communication to refine cognitive, perceptual, and motor skills. So in this lecture, we will look into these arguments closely and examine these arguments for its correctness. The first is about sexual selection, also known as the let's get it on hypothesis. So Charles Darwin reasoned that music was a trait of sexual selection. Females assess the strength, endurance, and the coordination of prospective mates through music. So there are a few aspects in doubt about this statement. For example, music in humans is not sexually dimorphic, as it is in birds and whales, for instance. So it means that there's no absolute distinction between the music made by male and female. And there's no proof that the female selects their mates through certain type of sound or the music the male made. So, and play music does not seem to guarantee more offspring. So although much pop music is arguably about sex, and music plays a prominent role in human mating rituals. Also, teenagers with hormone racing often create the strongest attachments to specific music and styles. So we can see that there is a certain relationship, certain correlation between music and the sexual selection, but we cannot see that, or there's no proof that music works specifically for male selection, and music emerged for the mate selection purpose. The next is the let's get it sync hypothesis, which points to the universal phenomenon called entrainment in all humans. Entrainment is the synchronization of organisms to an external perceived rhythm. Entrainment is the process by which two independent rhythmic systems interact with each other and synchronize. Rhythmically entraining together facilitates more coordinated work. It lessens the psychological burdens of work, and it may allow individuals to feel a part of something larger than themselves. So entrainment is prevalent in all humans, and when we work together or we will play music together, we naturally and automatically synchronize our internal rhythmic clock. Here is a quote from the book Improvisation, Its Nature and the Practice in Music. It said, it's sort of stumbling into this area where there's a lot of energy and something happening and not a lot of control, so that the sense of individual control disappears and you are working at another level entirely. Sometimes this feels to me as though you don't really have to think about what's happening. Things just flow. So this demonstrates the statement that by entrainment and when we coordinate our actions, it lessens the psychological burden of the individuals, and you basically give yourself to something that's shared by the group, and um, and a sense of individual control disappears. And you are working at another level entirely, which means individuals feel a part of something that's larger than themselves. Another quote talking about entrainment is from the book Free Play, Improvisation in Life and Art. There is a phenomenon called entrainment, which is the synchronization of two or more rhythmic systems into a single pulse. If a group of men is hammering on a building site, after a few minutes, they fall into the same rhythm without any explicit communication. In the same way, the body's physiological rhythms resonate with each other. When improvisers play together, they can rely on this natural phenomenon to match the music so that they breathe together, pause together, think together. So this entrainment is also a phenomenon of the collective improvisation, uh, where a group of people pay attention to the same thing when they are presented in the same space. So another hypothesis is called the let's get it along hypothesis, which points to social cohesion and solidarity. One supportive argument for this hypothesis is the grooming at a distance theory, which means in large social groups, vocal exchanges supplant the need for physical grooming. Similarly, across cultures, caregivers soothe their young with song, which frees their hands for other tasks. So, this way of using voice in replacement of hands or other physical functions to perform certain function such as physical grooming or soothe the young, which frees the hands for other tasks, is kind of the proof for that music actually enhances the social cohesion. Across cultures, adults talk to infants in a more musical fashion. It's called infant-directed speech, or IDS. In addition to promoting speech acquisition, by extending the vowel sounds, IDS promotes synchronization, attuning, and empathy. So we also speak to our pets in more musical tones, but we tend not to stretch out the vowel sounds, presumably because we don't expect our pets to learn to speak. So this is an observation by the study of IDS. If you have a pet, maybe you can pay attention to the way you talk to your pet uh, uh, against the way you talk to a baby or a children to see if your vowel sound really extends when you talk to your pets. But in a word, the the use of music to promote social cohesion or use the voice exchange to perform certain functionality for soothe, for solidarity, for social cohesion, instead of other ways, um, is um, is a way that music contributes in the evolutionary context. Another function of this get it along hypothesis is to resolve conflicts. So singing together releases oxytocin, which promotes relaxation and bonding. Musicking provides a consequence-free way for groups to address concerns and work to resolve conflict. Which means when we use music, we ensure that no one gets hurt instead of using brutal violence, right? So, and using music provides a way that's less aggressive and more indirect. Thus, we creating thus we create a social solidarity and resolve the conflict in a peaceful way. One example is the protest song. Protest songs have helped shape history, proving that when people come together and raise their voices, extraordinary things happen. So several theories focus on music's importance in relation to social cohesion, promoting cooperative behavior and synchronizing the emotions of many individuals who can then collectively take action to protect and defend themselves. The downside of this is that it also has the potential for developing feelings of hostility towards outgroups. So, so this is the side effect or the downside of this let's get along hypothesis. So there are also other hypotheses. For example, let's pass it on hypothesis, which points to the transgenerational communication. So this let's pass it on hypothesis gives a sense of inheritance, which means we can pass this intellectual product to the next generation. And actually, this provides a way to continue this tradition and the certain musical culture or form in a group of people. And another hypothesis is this let's build on it hypothesis, which means we not only can pass it on, but we can also build upon what's created by our ancestors and keep adding our new understandings, our new creations to that product, and keeps building on the intellectual product and this invisible treasure of human. So in terms of the evolutionary context, what is the position, what position the musicality holds in human evolutions? There are a few propositions. So is musicality an adaptation? An adaptation means it confers a survival advantage and it's shaped by natural selection and governed by genes. So this is a strong statement. If we see musicality is an adaptation, which means it helps us to survive, and it's governed by genes, it's innate, and it's shaped by natural selection in the evolutionary process. Another propose is that is musicality an exaptation? An exaptation is a helpful side function of an evolved trait which drives further evolution. So, which means music might be a side function of certain adaptation trait that drives the further evolution. For example, it might help with mate selection. It might help the group coordination, and by using music, it drives further evolution of these traits. Another proposal is that is music a pure spandrel? A spandrel means it's a mere byproduct with no obvious evolutionary significance. It's also known as Steven Pinker's auditory cheesecake, which argues that music plays no role in the evolutionary context, or it doesn't hold any evolutionary significance in human history. It's just a pure byproduct of something. Probably it's just a byproduct of our language ability, the exchange of information or emotion by voice. So so it denies the evolutionary significance of music. And also there is other statement that says that music is from a blank slate, or it's called tabula rasa, which means it's a result of general purpose learning capacity that's shaped by the environment. So this proposal denies the innateness of musicality, which means the music ability is not governed by our genes. It's a pure adaptation to our external environment. So when we're situated in the environment, we learn from our surroundings, and that's how music is formed. And it's not innate from our internal ability, or it's not genetic. So for those propositions, there's no absolute answer. So people hold different opinions, and here we provide some arguments supporting some of these proposals. So here are some evidence for music as an adaptation. The first, music and the musicality is widespread. So in all human societies, we can find the evidence of the formation of music in various cultural niches and society and the human communities, which means the music phenomenon is prevalent in human. So music can evoke strong emotions, which often implies adaptive behaviors. So for human beings, if something evoke strong emotions, it often points to some adaptive behavior. So this is supporting evidence for music might be an adaptation. Musical development in children broadly follows the same pattern. So this argues that musical ability might be governed by our genes, because all children follow the similar pattern to learn music, just as how we learn language. So music might be innate, might be governed by our genes, because we follow the same process in adapting to or obtaining this trait in our life. Specialist memory and specialized cortical mechanisms are developed in our brains for specifically for music. So if our brain allocates specific mechanisms and space for music processing, which means music should be important to our human life. Otherwise, our brain won't allocate this kind of computing resource to music. So this is also a supporting evidence for that music should hold some evolutionary significance in the development of human beings. And there is also parallels in other species, like birds, whales, gibbons. Um, so in these species, we can also find the traces of music. But many of our closest primate relatives, such as chimps and bonobos, they are not particularly musical. So this can be treated as a counterexample for musical as an adaptation, because if music is really governed by our genes, then our closest primate relatives should also who share the similar genes with us should also develop these musical traits. But this is not the truth. So actually, our closest primate relatives are not particularly musical. So, Margulis commented on this, the fact that humans' closest relatives do not display more of the component abilities than more distant relatives implies that no simple and unambiguous path for the evolution of musicality exists. So this fact actually confuses us when we try to explain the evolutionary significance of music um, by these statements. So there are some other arguments talking about the evolutionary traits of music. Even if music were 100% spectral, having a reason through no direct selective pressure, its reliance on so many biological substrates, its global universality, and its substantial societal power all make the case for sustained inquiry into this distinctively human art. So, Margulis argues that even though music holds no evolutionary significance, it's still important for human, and it holds its significance in human lives because it uses so many biological substrates, and it has this global universality in all human beings, and it serves substantial societal functionalities. Another quote, our obsession with music arose because it harnessed so much of nature around us, and because it used existing and ancient brain mechanisms for new and exciting purposes. Music is a part of us because we designed it based on who we were and what we needed as humans. The human animal, our evolving brains and bodies, were the blueprint for music. So, this is all I want to present about how the relationship between music and human evolution, and what role music plays in an evolutionary context. Hope you enjoyed it, and this is all for this lecture.